Hi, everyone. I'm joined today by Selina Suarez, who's the Executive Director of PepUp Tech, which I'm sure many of you would have heard about around the community. So it's a pleasure to speak with you, Selina, and thanks for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy, and to tell us about your story and some of the ongoing and new projects you have with myself and the Salesforce Blend readers. So I'm sure people have heard your name and of course PepUp Tech. So why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about who you are and where you're currently based in the world?
Yeah, sure. Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about PepUp with your listeners. My name is Selina Suarez. This month makes 11 years that I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem. I started out, like many people, accidental admin 11 years ago, where I was working for a nonprofit that was really looking to drive their reporting and assessment metrics for students who were considered high risk to attend college. So students who were looking to go to college, but they may have been first generation, first in their family to attend college, and they were looking for a way to track those metrics and some of the initiatives that they were doing on a database platform, which is how I ended up eventually learning about Salesforce and over the years getting certified and moving into different roles. So my background really was in ed tech. I was doing projects for organizations that focused on poverty alleviation and education. And that career path and my experience with Salesforce took me on a 11-year journey where I did many different things. So I worked at a couple of big nonprofits as a Salesforce administrator. I worked on some startups. I did a couple of for-profit projects. My heart is really in nonprofits, and so I tend to focus a lot of my consulting work and services to the nonprofit sector. So I'm a big NPSP fan. A couple of years ago, Salesforce also introduced the Education Cloud. So I went to go work for Salesforce as their very first K-12 senior product manager to help them design how we could bring K-12 into the existing HEDA architecture. And eventually that entire project became the Education Cloud. So
Wow.
yeah, great experience there. I really enjoyed my time at Salesforce. I was there for 2 years, but at the end of 2018, I resigned from Salesforce to run PepUp Tech full time. So PepUp Tech was just, this idea back in 2016 when I was, getting my footing in the industry. I was working as a consultant. I had a job at a nonprofit in New York City. And, I'm from New York City originally, and I grew up in a pretty low income environment, urban environment. And my ability to obtain an education and then move into the Salesforce ecosystem made a huge difference in my employability and my ability to provide for my family, my extended family, and members in my community. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we can go out there and teach other people? And, this is around the time where Trailhead first came out. So I learned Salesforce just like all of the other veterans using the AW computing, the force.com workbook, so old school. And around the time that Trailhead came out, we were like, wow, this could be an amazing opportunity to make learning Salesforce fun because it's gamified. And we started thinking about how can we go into communities and make this accessible. And I was leading the New York City Women in Tech user group with Amy Bucciferro, Carrie Mancioni, and Cheryl Feldman. And so I said to them, hey, we should think about how can we get the members of our user group in New York City involved in give back. Like that was a big goal for us that year. We were all new leaders of the Women in Tech user group in New York City. And we were like, okay, what can we do to give back to our community? We started running boot camps, which was literally we would go into a nonprofit, we spend 3 hours talking about Salesforce. And then we were like, wow, this is something like people are really interested in it. They would like it, but we can't teach Salesforce in 3 hours. What can we do? So we created this boot camp, and the boot camp was 4 days. So we were like, okay, maybe we'll partner with a college. I used to work at a college. So we went back to the college and we asked them, can we run a boot camp program for their students? And they were a little hesitant in the beginning. Like Carrie and I showed up for this meeting and they were like, tossing all of these tough questions at us, like, well, how is this going to work? And are there really jobs? And what's Salesforce? And, why should we care? And so we were like pitching this thing and they were grilling us. And eventually they agreed to allow us to run this boot camp for these inner city students in the Bronx. So Carrie and I go in with some volunteers. We ran that first program. It was really successful. We had a big turnout, and we were like, well, you can't teach Salesforce in 4 days. So what else can we do? So again, we were like pushing ourselves to think about how do we give students the skills that they need. And even while we were running that 4-day boot camp, there were success stories coming out of the program, right? We were working with computer science and business students. They were taking that knowledge and flipping it into careers. And we had one student who was our very first student, because we run our entire business on Salesforce. So our goal was always what are we measuring ourselves against? How do we know that we succeeded, right? How do we know that our model is successful? And so Carrie and myself and Cheryl and Amy, our very first goal was, we need to get one student successful. One, that was our goal. Our goal was one person gets a job, and then we can replicate that model in our community. And the one student was this young man named Nicholas Grant. He was 19 years old. Now he's like a really successful developer. He does very, very well. He's like mentored hundreds of students. He teaches for us. He's like incredible. He works with OHAD, and they do a lot of amazing projects. But this one student, we kind of measured our experience with him. And that's how we designed what became our academy, which was our 10-week Salesforce training program. We specifically designed it around this one person and his experience, because he was a good representation of the population of students we were looking to capture.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess then, as the more people that go through the programs, there's this big multiplier effect, and it all cascades down of more people wanting to give back for the opportunities that they got given to them, which is great. So we'll come on to the new initiative that you're spearheading a bit later. But first we'll talk a bit about, say, the industry in general. So having founded PepUp Tech, obviously the topic of equal opportunities is something you thought a lot about, something you've been very involved in. But what I've always thought about the Salesforce ecosystem, something that's quite unique and remarkable about it, is that although it's an enterprise software company, it's actually amazing that they were probably one of the first to really advocate and be committed to equality throughout the ecosystem.
Right. We got a lot of support from Salesforce when we came up with the idea to really drive.
But do you have any other specific examples that you want to share, where you think that Salesforce has lowered those boundaries, those typical barriers to entry in that are seen in other industries, in other technology industries?
So from day one, we got a lot of support from Salesforce, the company, right? We wouldn't have scaled the way that we did and been able to make the impact we did if it wasn't for the support of Salesforce, the company. So we had a lot of community support for sure. So all the folks in the Salesforce user group community, you guys know Cheryl Feldman, everybody knows Cheryl Feldman. So her backing of PepUp Tech is what got us, our recognition. It helped us to get Salesforce to take notice, because at that time I was only a few years in as an admin. I didn't really know anyone. I didn't really know anybody at Salesforce. Cheryl was helping us to make those connections by introducing us to people who would help drive our mission. And one of those people was Mary Scotton, who was a developer evangelist at the time. This is when Trailhead first came out and was released to the ecosystem. And Mary Scotton, who was an evangelist, really was helping us to think about how we can be more inclusive in how we deliver our program. So, she wrote a great article about allyship, and this is around the time where everybody at Salesforce was talking about being allies. And so a lot of people stepped up to help us. That's what really, set us apart from, everybody else was out there doing things. We got strong support from Salesforce from the door, and just with things like, the Trailhead team getting on a call with us and making sure we knew how to set students up in mass using DevOrgs, right? Making sure that we can get Trailhead playgrounds up and running with minimal interruptions, right? Things like that, just helping us scale how that program went. So Mary had done a Salesforce boot camp at the University of San Francisco, and it was recorded. And so they had some good marketing materials around it. And so we met with them to talk about how that went, the pros and the cons, and we used that to design our boot camp programs. Salesforce did a lot of things for us in those years to help us make this program equitable, because someone like me, you know, I come from a very poor background. I'm a technologist by trade for sure, but my heart, I'm a bleeding heart, I'm a nonprofiteer, and my mission and what I care about is poverty alleviation and education, right? For everyone. I feel like education should be easily and equally accessible by people, regardless of if you were born to a family with money or a family that didn't have money. The great thing
Getting
about,
across the lottery. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, the great thing about tech is that it's this great equalizer, right? You don't have to come in, you know, you can come through the door with motivation and determination, and you can take it really far. And there's not many industries out there with, you know, that without a college degree or without 15 years of experience, that you can completely elevate yourself from, you know, a low-paying job to a sufficient career in a 2-3 year time frame. Like our students, once they're 2 years of experience in, they are rocking and rolling. Like their career is fully fledged, and that's exciting to see, right? Where else can we get that kind of momentum? So even though I'm a person that cares about poverty alleviation and educational attainment for people of color and other represented groups, technology and Salesforce specifically helped us get there lightning fast, right? Like, so Salesforce was helping us. They were teaching us how to scale. They were allowing us to use their technology. We run our entire business on Salesforce, right? We got the P10 donation from them. They gave us our very first donation so that we can go out there and market to people that needed to take advantage of the courses that we were offering. So we were very lucky in that way. And so that backing, I mean, it's important, right? It's like when you have a child and your child is, you know, about to get their first job and go to college, you have the parent or the big brother that's there encouraging them and pushing them. That's what Salesforce was to us. They constantly pushed us and made themselves available. We would get guest speakers from all across the Salesforce, like the employees would use their VTO hours to come and volunteer, talk to the class, people like Chris Duarte and Layla Seika and like just, you know, Leah McGowan, they would come and talk to our students. And that matters, right? Because it adds a level of legitimacy. So people are like, well, you know, all these people care about what they're doing. It must be something I should know about. And it gave us momentum, which was really important in those early days when we really had no reputation, right? We didn't know anybody. We had no money. We had nothing. And then we had this organization that helped us out. And that was the big differentiator for us.
Yeah, and I think what you've said is just so true, especially about technology being such a great equalizer. And if you are motivated and a self-starter, then you really have that, you know, you can harness that and take your career. It's you know, there's that saying, getting into certain industries, it's not what you know, but who you know. I think in Salesforce, it's the other way around. It's not who you know necessarily, it's what you know and what you can do with that. So although we've just spoken about how many initiatives and how many great things are going on, there still sometimes is a hurdle that exists that, you know, everyone's working hard to get across, but from time to time, you know, we are working with technology and it's business critical technology, so it's understandable that some people may be a little bit nervous about letting people who may have just come into the ecosystem or just trained to work on their CRM if there's no, say, accountability. And then there's obviously other barriers as well, to things like the cost of certifications and obviously classroom training is a great benefit to have on top of self-learning, but that obviously comes at a price. So yeah, while Trailhead and all these self-learning tools are great, don't get me wrong, there is a gap, say, between mastering Trailhead and self-learning and actually getting your first bit of Salesforce experience. So is this a challenge that you see too? And what would your advice be for some?
Definitely. I mean, we talk to other people who are running Salesforce training programs like, you know, BAM and Merivis and VetForce, right? We're collaborating with these different groups to talk about what's working for us, how are we handling workforce placements. where, you know, what works in terms of training. Now,
Mm.
self-learning is great. Trailhead has made it a lot easier for us to teach because it's so organized and they're constantly improving it, and it matches, right, what's in the updates. Like back in the days before Trailhead, we had the force.com book. It didn't always match what was in Salesforce, right? Because they're printed versions, and as the application is updated, the book is not printed as quick as the application is updated, with 3 major releases a year. So Trailhead has been that equalizer from the technology stack perspective. When we're thinking about access, because that was the original question, it's very expensive to get the guidance. So Trailhead is a lot of fun and it's great to do, but without context, industry context, it's hard to like take it as far as you really can. But one of the things, and we use Trailhead in our courses, so I've been monitoring very closely how Trailhead has improved over the past couple of years. And today, I'm really excited about how Trailhead now has those super badges, and those super badges give you a very good idea of how Salesforce is used in a real business case scenario, right? Like it's very similar to what you would encounter in the real world. So that's helping people. Trailhead originally was created to be that a la carte where you can like pick and choose and, you know, decide what you want to learn. And that's great for people like us who have been in the ecosystem for a long time and we know what we want to learn, right? We're like, well, I need to create some email templates. Let me go to, you know, Trailhead and figure out how to create this template. When you're a new learner and you're brand new to Salesforce, that's a lot harder to do because you don't know what you need to do. A lot of the questions that I get for people who are trying to train on Trailhead is like, can you point me to a trail mix? I get this a lot. Like people who either they don't qualify for our course, or maybe it's a client that I'm working with and they want to skill themselves up. They'll say to me, well, what should I do? Admin beginner? Should I take this trail? They're confused about where to start and go because they're new. And Trailhead has so much content that it can be very overwhelming for a new user who is not experienced in Salesforce.
Yeah, things that we take for granted, you know, knowing the difference between like an admin trail and a developer trail. Yeah.
Right. And we've been doing it a long time. Like Salesforce is a very complex tool. It's complex. There's a lot that you can do with it. No one knows everything, right? Maybe Steve, but no one knows everything, right?
Maybe who, sorry?
Who?
What did you say? Maybe who?
I said maybe Steve Mo from.
I thought you said Steve Mo. Shout out.
I said maybe he knows everything, but the rest of us are still learning all the time, right? And so one of the things that I tell students, because they do get overwhelmed, and when they hit a roadblock, they're like, well, maybe this is not for me. I share my own experience because I'm an admin, right? I'm a developer, application developer. I've customized and built Salesforce implementations. I've been doing it for 11 years, but I still have to go online and Google things and read documentation and take Trailhead. So it is an industry that requires that you're going to make that commitment to continue to push yourself forward. And we're an industry that is characterized by rapid innovation. So I tell the students, it's not that you don't know it, it's that the industry continues to innovate and you just got to keep your skill sets moving forward. The most important thing for you is to know where to go when you stumble and hit a roadblock, because you will hit roadblocks. I hit them every day. I'm in Salesforce. I'm like, oh man, how do I do this thing? What's my syntax again? I forget these things all the time and I have to go back and figure it out. You know, good admins are people who like to solve puzzles and who are curious and like to read and research. And these are the things that we push. When it comes to access, so like getting access to people like me and you and others in the ecosystem that have that context is really hard for new learners who live in communities where there isn't a huge tech industry, right? So like a lot of our students, the biggest conglomerate of our students come from 2 partners in New York. It's the City University of New York and Monroe College. In New York City, there is a huge tech industry, right? But the underrepresented populations that we serve, they are not connected into that industry. So even though they might find Trailhead and go on Trailhead, they don't know anybody who can add the context that they need to know how to navigate through Trailhead and to understand by using, you know, very understandable to them examples, right? So sometimes when I'm in Trailhead, there's an example of a company like solar energy company, right? Like a lot of our students, they don't know what the heck that is. So that example doesn't work for them. yesterday we were doing a trail on data quality, and sometimes we work in communities, right, with students who don't know a thing about solar energy or solar panels, for example, because they live in urban environments and they don't, they're not attaching things to their roofs. They live in buildings, right? So it's not familiar to them. So what we do is we'll go through the Trailhead and we'll talk to them a little bit about the solar industry, but then we give them examples that they can understand. So more like, okay, here's an example that makes sense for you. One of the examples we talk about is like the lemonade stand app. Right? If you I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in Coney Island. There are no lemonade stands, right, in front of people's houses. It's not something we do in our neighborhood. We didn't grow up with lemonade stands. So the context of that app, that module, it's fun and it's cool to do, but it doesn't. We don't relate to that, right? So we try to provide. We'll give them examples in Trailhead, but we give them examples that are familiar to them in their communities so that the examples make sense. And again, that goes back to providing context, because if you were a new user and you wanted to use Salesforce and you had access to Trailhead, if you wanted that one-on-one instructor with somebody who was well-versed in the industry, you would either have to know someone who worked in the industry for a long time, which many of our students, they're not connected into the industry, so they don't know anyone. And then secondarily, you would need to have money, right, to go and take a Salesforce class at some paid organization. And that can range anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for the admin trail, right? Intermediate and beginner. That's a lot of money, and there's no financial aid that covers that. So it's inaccessible to masses of people. Certification vouchers. It sounds like $200 is not a lot of money, but we literally work with students who, when we do some of our live courses, we used to run into issues where students didn't have $2.50 to take the subway to get to the boot camp that we were running. So if they're struggling with the Metro card, right, a pass to get on the subway, how are they going to afford a $200 tuition? A certification voucher. So that example that's an example of a roadblock that we have that prevents underrepresented or low-income people from having access to tech. At PepUp Tech, with the help of Salesforce and the Salesforce partner ecosystem, we've eliminated those barriers. So Salesforce Ben has been very helpful to us because our students utilize the resources on Salesforce Ben to help pass certification. This is stuff they wouldn't have access to, right? It's mission critical to them that they have access to Salesforce Ben content, podcast materials, articles, practice exams, that they have access to vouchers where they can take Salesforce certification, that they can sit with us for a 30-hour training course where we're giving them context around how to use Trailhead to drive their career. All we do at PepUp Tech is we look for barriers and then we figure out a way to eliminate them. That's how the program works. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's amazing that, you're removing these barriers almost by investing, like making that upfront investment in promising individuals, because the demand is there in the ecosystem for more professionals, especially like really motivated, like self-starter driven people that are very adaptable as well. That makes the perfect technologists working with an industry where the knowledge isn't static, like you said as well. But there's that quote from Einstein that's, saying, don't try to memorize things that you can look up in a book. But it's the same with us, we shouldn't memorize things that we can look up online. Instead, we should be adaptable to business use cases and things like that. That's great. But I didn't want to kick off this interview talking about the current COVID virus, but we should definitely address it because the situation is changing day to day. And I know that your new program is your response, your way of helping with the situation. But was there something specific about COVID and the situation that prompted you to take action? Was that like a light bulb moment?
So we would have never expected any of this to happen. We started out our year with our
start this year. Yeah.
We started off in January with our V2 Mom, like we do every year. We said, we're going to run this course and that course and do this thing and that event. And we're going to Dreamforce. Like those were our plans, just like they are every single year. And mid-March, everything was turned upside down. We had, just made some investments in PepUp Tech and some improvements. And we, like every other organization, started seeing things crashing around us. we fundraise, right, off of following Salesforce events. We go to Dreamforce, we have a fundraiser. We go to the World Tour, we have a fundraiser. We really depend on the community to help this program survive. And so when all of those events were canceled, it affected our entire 2020 and beyond budget, right? We didn't know if we would be able to make this thing work. And on top of it, on the side, we were getting many, many calls from people who were losing their jobs, and we were getting emails about how can I now take advantage of this academy. I've always wanted to do Salesforce. I've never had the time because I had this full-time job or these 2 full-time jobs. And now I actually have the time. Is there anything that you guys are doing that can help us? So we were getting, there were 2 sides of the fence. 1, we were worried about our budget. And 2, our community was like, we don't know what to do. We're losing our jobs. So what we ended up doing is we said, well, our program runs 10 weeks. It's 3 hours a day. Typically, we do it on a Saturday morning. In the fall, we have like some morning classes that we offer, but typically it's a 3-hour program on a Saturday morning. So it is accessible to all of our students who are in college and working. And what ended up happening is 10 weeks is a long time, right? So we were like, can we run an accelerated program? So we came up with a 5-week model that focuses 3 weeks on the admin and beginner opportunities in Salesforce. And then we moved on to certification prep, heavy certification prep, to try to get these guys from 0 to at least on path to certification, or hopefully granted certification in that 5-week time frame. And we're doing that by offering daily classes. So it's every day, 2 hours a day. We're working with them. They have homework assignments, and we're assessing how they're doing and where students are struggling so that we can refine it. We've made a commitment to run that program every 5 weeks until the end of November. And it's challenging, right? I teach 4 hours a day. I'm teaching myself and our co-instructors. And I was a little bit overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, that's half my workday every single day that I'm going to just be in a classroom on a Zoom meeting talking. What's that going to be like? But it's actually incredible. And we're seeing, you know, we opened up our program. So our traditional model is you have to be low income, you have to be a female, or from a underrepresented background, like an underrepresented minority, some type of barrier that you have in place that will prevent you from landing in tech. So the population of people that qualify for our program now has significantly changed because of the layoffs. With this 33 million layoffs in the United States has come this opportunity to have more people from different industries. There are people who have wanted to do our program but couldn't because of work. Now that everybody's home and sheltering down, we're really promoting this message of skilling up. And now we're starting to see things come back, right? We're getting job opportunities sent to us. So we're still facilitating workforce placements. We're running our program. We have some incredible people, but for the first time, we're seeing the makeup of our class changing because of so many people that are laid off. So in this last class, we have a lot of industry professionals. So people who laid off from the advertising industry. We have people who have been laid off from, like we have a nurse in one of our classes who she worked for like a smaller clinic, and the clinic like closed down because of COVID and she got laid off. Yeah. And then she said, you know what? She said, I always wanted to work in medical technology, always. And she was like, this is the opportunity for me to do that. And she's in our class. She's doing very well. She wants to take her experience of being a nurse, learning Salesforce, and then contribute back to the medical industry. And that's pretty crazy, right? Like all of these years, we've been struggling to fill these tech roles, especially these SME level tech roles, people who have years of industry experience, but people with a lot of years of industry experience weren't necessarily leaving their industries to join tech, right? Some were, but we weren't seeing them in droves, not through our PepUp program, but now we're seeing that because people now have the time and the opportunity to pursue things that they may have been interested in. And so our class is super interesting. We have like financial services people, 15 years of experience. Like it's mind-boggling the kind of students that are coming through our course now. And I'm really excited because it brings the entire class up as well. Right, we'll have students who have no work experience, who have, you know, maybe they come from an underrepresented background, they've never had, you know, certain types of opportunities, and now they're in a classroom with somebody who has 15 years of banking experience, and through osmosis, they're connecting with people that they may have never met before. And I think that it's a beautiful thing, and I'm excited about where this is going.
Yeah, like you just got now role models as well embedded in the class, and everyone can learn off each other, especially with that industry experience. That's
And
probably key, isn't it,
what's
to
unique,
getting,
what's unique about it is they're all in the same boat. So you
yeah.
might be a 15-year person, financial services experience. You might be a low-income student that had very limited opportunities, but you guys are now, because of this COVID thing, we're all equal. So there is this whole, like, I want to help you thing happening, which is really nice to see. Like, we haven't always seen that in our past classes because everybody was kind of from the same place. And now there is this whole, I'm reaching out to help my fellow person. And it's really exciting. We see it on the course, like we're teaching and then somebody will jump in, and just the facilitation of conversation and the elevation of what we're talking about, and different people coming together under a common cause because we now
Mm.
have something in common. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with all the courses and the 4 hours of teaching that you have to do every day. But it's your passion and you love it. So, I wanted to ask you if there was any. I mean, you already mentioned the story about your first student, and how proud you are of him and his progression. But any other favorite memories or highlights from your time running PepUp Tech?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them. We just hit 124 employed in this last year. So for us,
Wow.
125. So we got one yesterday. So for us, that's a big deal. We only have 2 full-time staff members. We have a board of 14
Mm.
people, but we've been really pushing, and it's so exciting to see that it works, right? We have something that's working. Like this thing with Salesforce and Trailhead, it works, it changes lives, it improves communities. And like you mentioned earlier in our call, these students are now coming back. So what makes me most excited now, what I'm really proud of, is they're hiring each other. Like they're hiring managers now, right? They came into us as like a college student, not knowing what they were going to do with their lives. And now they're calling me like, I'm hiring for 2 roles. Do you have any PepUp students? And I'm like, they just graduated from my class a year and a half ago. So there's a full circle effect that's happening. It's what we hoped for when we started PepUp. We were like, wouldn't it be great if we create this whole army of alumni, and they're all, but it was an idea, right? So to see that
Mm.
come to life, and it's like, wow, this is actually happening. We couldn't
Yeah.
be, we couldn't be happier. It's the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah, it's self-sustaining almost now. You'll leave a legacy, and that will just keep going. Yeah, amazing. So final question. It's a little bit of a curveball. It's not doesn't have to be Salesforce related, but if you could write one thing on a billboard, if you want to broadcast a message to thousands of people, what would it be? And it could be a message for professionals inside the ecosystem. Could be a message to underserved populations, or just the general public. What would you put?
So there's a woman who works at Salesforce. She leads Trailblazer marketing. Her name is Christina Jones. She also sits on our board. She's an incredible person who invests her career in helping businesses and organizations use the power of storytelling to share
Mm.
what they're doing in the universe. And when we met her a couple of years ago, when we were featured at Dreamforce, and I met with her, she encouraged me to think about what PepUp Tech was. Are we just a training program, or is there some legacy, or is there something that we're doing that's bigger than just teaching Salesforce? And after I told her my whole story, and she went back to the drawing board with her team, they came up with the hashtag #FutureIsNow, and we use it very frequently on Twitter and other social platforms when we're talking about our work. And if I had to blast anything on a billboard, it would be the future is now. It's become like something that we say all the time at PepUp Tech. And it really is true, right? The future is not tomorrow. It's not next week. It's not in 5 years. It's today. Like, what are you going to do today to get to where you want to be? Your future starts today. It can start with PepUp Tech. It can start with Merivis. It can start with VetForce. It can start with BAM, whatever program that you're looking to elevate and move yourself forward, but just start, right? Your future is
Yeah.
right now. It's not later. It's not some thing in the future, right? It's now. It starts now.
Mm.
So that
I
would
think
be the
everyone
message
should
that
say that. Yeah, I think everyone should say that to themselves in the mirror in the morning. Just don't waste the day. Don't waste time. There's just so much out there and so many opportunities.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love
Right.
that. It's simple. It makes sense. It's easy to
Mm.
explain. And if I could broadcast to thousands of people, that's the message that I would leave.
Amazing, amazing. Right, so how can people find out more about PepUp Tech? Maybe they want to support. Where's best to find you and the organization online?
You know, we're always looking for volunteers. So anybody in the Salesforce Bend community and beyond who really wants to take what they learn and what they do in their business and teach others. We have hundreds of people. We're doing 1,500 students this year that would love to hear from you. You can come speak, you can guest teach, you can mentor a student, you can assist them on a coaching assignment. So we are always looking for new volunteers who have some unique thing that they want to give back to the community. Stephanie Herrera, who is one of our board members and founders, is also really, her number one thing is getting PepUp Tech global so that people in London and Amsterdam and Paris, where our other Salesforce Saturdays communities live, can have access to this program as well. So if you are in another country and you're international, you're not in the US and you want to apply to our programs, they are open for you to apply. Just visit us at pepuptech.org/courses. That's the site that will show you. We run courses on administrators who want to work in the for-profit sector, and we also offer courses for administrators who want to work in the nonprofit sector. So if you want to learn NPSP, so we are here for you. If you want to do our program, we have a lot of different options, and you can visit us online to learn more about that.
Great. Well, yeah, I'll add the links as well into wherever we publish this video. And well, thank you so much. And yeah, this has been very informative for everyone, I'm sure, and everyone would have taken at least something from this. So thanks again, and great work on everything that you're doing. It's really, I'm really motivated now to get back to work.
And thank you. And we absolutely love Salesforce Bend. It's been a game changer for our students in achieving certifications. 88 certifications, and our students have been picking up the training and the information that they need by using Salesforce Bend, and it's been a blessing to us. So we thank you for
no, thank you. Thank you for everything. All right, great. Thank you. And yeah, speak to you soon.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.